Peace TV reporters have been active at the UN headquarters since 2010, the age of former UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. They are often invited to gather pictures and news about high-level meetings and events at the UN headquarters. We usually report live on the scene the events of dozens of countries, including the US, France, the UK, Israel, Germany, Russia, Egypt, Kuwait, Bulgaria, Ukraine, and Morocco, and the EU at the UN headquarters and their residences in New York. Our news reports have, in part, kept the international community up to date with the work of different governments so that people everywhere will know the great efforts and contributions of the UN to world peace, international affairs, and multilateralism.
Hello everyone, my name is Kiuma. I'm from Darfur, Sudan, and I'm doing a master's program in international affairs at the New School, and I'm also doing the UN Summer Study program. And today I'm invited to attend the UN World Oceans Day, and it was very fruitful, and it was very beautiful for me to attend this event. I actually appreciate it, and it was really very informative. And as we are a human being, we have to take this kind of issue of the marine life seriously in order to find a way to protect this marine life. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Malika Khontuchibayeva. I am from Uzbekistan, Central Asia. Now I'm studying at the United Nations Summer Study Program at the New School, and I'm really grateful to attend this amazing session and participate in Oceans Day. It was really useful for all of us. Thank you very much.
Introduce Dan Perel, who is the UN representative for the Baha'i International Community here at the UN, and also he's co-chair of the Coalition for the UN Dan, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Margot, and welcome everyone. It's always a pleasure to have a full room with food. So sorry to those 24 of you who are not here, but I'm hopeful that one day you can too partake in perhaps not this food, it probably won't be good then, but other food with us. So building upon the momentum generated by the UN Intergovernmental Conference on Marine Biodiversity of Areas Beyond National Jurisdiction, also known as BBNJ, we're excited about the prospects of protecting our environment from climate change, plastic pollution, and the impacts of rising sea levels on especially coastal communities. Through engaging stakeholders from various sectors, we hope to develop sustainable action solutions and partnerships. Following the presentations today, there'll be an opportunity for networking, fostering collaboration, and furthering our collective efforts. Our aim, as always, is to inspire individuals to take action and protect our oceans for a more sustainable future. That's the script. Something else came to my mind as I was watching this, and as you may be aware, sort of the underlying theme and aspiration of the Baha'i international community is that of oneness, the reality that humanity is one family on one shared homeland. And I think about the oceans as sort of the first teacher of that. You know, they are the conduit that allowed human exploration from one corner of the world to another, long before flight and other forms of transport. It was the oceans that truly united humanity.
And I'm also the co-chair for an organization called High Level Panel for a Sustainable Ocean Economy, also known as the Ocean Panel. That's 17 countries that control 45% of the territorial oceans of the world. So a lot of my time is focused on climate change, on oceans issues, and sustainable development for small islands. Just some bit of background, the Pacific sits, it's actually a very large area. It's 28 million square kilometers. That's approximately the size of China, Russia, and Peru put together. So these 14 small island countries, we call ourselves small island developing states, but in reality, we're large ocean states. We call the region the Blue Pacific continent, and we call ourselves ocean people. So a lot of our work and our economies rely on the ocean, so it's a topic that's very near and dear to our hearts. And so a lot of the time we spend at the UN in the multilateral negotiations is focused on oceans issues. Palau is, I don't know, many people here probably have never heard of it. It's a small country in the Western Pacific. If you draw a line down from Japan and to the east of the Philippines, am I doing this right? No. The east of Japan and down for the Philippines and intersects in the middle of the ocean, that's where Palau is. There's 20,000 people there. There's 350 islands, but our EEZ is the size of France. So we are one of we again rely on the ocean. It's a very famous scuba diving destination. Fisheries is also a major industry for us. And we're also kind of known to be one of the more environmentally conscious small island countries in the world, focused on trying to get the ocean to be cleaned up and stopping a lot of the pollution that's coming from plastics. Another issue that Palau is very involved with is the seabed. The seabed is connected to the water column. Territorial oceans are connected to the high seas, so we really have to think about it collectively. And Dan mentioned this concept of oneness, and so when you think about the ocean, it's really one thing that kind of connects us all. And somebody else said it in one of the panels I was in, which is a really interesting thing, which is it's the air and the water that connect all of us. And so when you think about issues of climate change and of the ocean,
there was a lot about Vanuatu there, so that's perhaps one of the heavy hitters at the UN. So we're really pleased that he was able to send us a video.
Hosting this, and thank you, Daniel. It's an honor to be here. I think what you're doing is so important to bring multi-stakeholder partners to the table. And I was delighted to hear Seed's remarks. I've had the privilege of being involved in the work of Palau for a number of years, going back to Professor Stuart Beck, actually. And when we started to focus on marine protected areas, and we launched the Ocean Sanctuary Alliance, and launched, along with Italy and a number of other countries, the 10 by 20 initiative. So we were in the early days, we were pushing for the SDG agenda. MDGs failed us, and oceans didn't exist. And we tend to forget that something like over 250 million people directly or indirectly rely on marine fisheries, the revenue and so on. But actually, 3 billion people count on that, what happens from around the sea, the coastal areas. So we eat fish from there, we get energy from there, we actually are very bad when we pollute it. You mentioned the plastics, gyro and so on. It's a sorry state of affairs. And the ambassador of Vanuatu mentioned something about going to ICJ and trying to petition member states about doing things, focusing on climate and ocean. We have COP28 coming up. We have one day in which there's nature, land use, and ocean. When we forget that oceans drive so many things. So I guess it's sort of a challenge, and it's also understandable when these things happen. You can't change that actually overnight, but don't give up. So this conversation is very important. And once we are faced with all these challenges, I love the idea that this is about collaboration, this is about partnerships. I've been privileged to be working in the partnership field for a number of years. I was involved in setting up the partnership office for the UN. And the idea was very simple. It's not about charity. ODA, which most people understand from overseas development assistance, runs at about 180 billion. COVID-19 caused a dip, and it came back up to 2019 levels. And I know always the challenge is, how can I get return on capital? I'm also worried about return on capital. So, and countries, island development countries, landlocked countries, generally, are now looking at those areas by saying, we will provide better governance, more transparency, more accountability. But you need to come in and help us build those systems, better reporting. Over the years, the donor countries have said, I need to present this project proposal in a particular way. I need to report it in a particular way. So we are spending between 25 and 35% of time and resources.
That is coming up on its sunset next year, and of course, SIDS around the world will be helping establish a 2.0 framework for what that looks like. And in order for that to be successful, really the heart of the SIMO pathway was this idea of identifying best practices and lessons learned and sharing them across the SIDS network. And it's exciting to see so many leaders in this space here today that really represent that institutional knowledge. But I'm not here representing the Islanders, technology and media. And as it relates to this convening, the focus they really spearheaded is on the data side. And you'll forgive me as I'm seeing my 3-year-old try and enter the room behind me. Hey Coda, hey Ruby, Dad is in a meeting right now. Love you guys, be right there. But the SDG Data Alliance, by the way, there's 3 dogs also, so if you're not hearing babies, you're hearing dogs bark, such is the life these days. But the SDG Data Alliance was established in 2017, really with the central premise of we need to find a way to help governments identify how to access their data, democratize that data, and of course use that data to establish clear benchmarks and of course track progress as they address the SDGs. In 2021, this program launched with pilots in 19 countries around the world, helping build their SDG data hubs.
For the first time in a very long time, I've been able to sit down with Sylvia. As of late, it was during World Oceans Week a couple weeks ago in New York, and I said to her, I said, I really can use a few minutes of your time, and I realized that's a big ask because, well, it's World Oceans Week, and you're Dr. Sylvia Earle. I'm sure there's a lot of people that want to talk to you. And she said to me, Jerry, this particular work is probably the most important thing that we can do. Because if it's done right, and we can show the world how impactful that this is, it could be the very thing that funds all conservation for the ocean. And that took me a step back for a minute because it helped me realize that all of these assets that exist within the ocean are super important. It's very important. And the problem is, sometimes we look at this space as the blue carbon space or the blue economy space. We say, well, it's a nascent space.
Definitely have still been with his mother and his baby and his grandmothers and his siblings as he was taken into captivity to get as he fell ill. So, and taken in by a community of people to get him well. Just these incredibly powerful family interactions of the whales. These are 3 babies swimming together, playful together as siblings, cousins, and it was just incredible to be with them. Here's another young baby. So it's been a tremendous privilege to work on these whales and get to know them. I'm happy to talk further about them, but just sort of a dive into our ocean as we take a break from sort of looking forward. But I think we can learn so much from the whales and how important they are to keep in our ocean. And I will end there, but thank you so much for having me, and it's just been, incredible to work on the whales and to be a part of this incredible community trying to, protect our beautiful planet, our planet ocean.
Thank you so much. Have you with us and share your initiatives and what you've been working on, also your new book.
Ask somebody to clean their room if I haven't cleaned my room first. My room was Hawaii. So I started the Blue Planet Foundation with the end in mind that we're going to end the use of carbon-based fuel in Hawaii. Now, Hawaii at that time spent $6 billion a year on $5 billion on oil, $1 billion on coal. Of the oil, 30% goes to jet fuel, 30% ground transportation, 40% to electricity. That's $2 billion, and then $1 billion, $3 billion going for electricity. This is in a place where it's like the mecca of renewable energy because we're the southernmost state. We have the best sun. We have trade winds 95% of the time. We have geothermal to die for. We are in a hot spot. We're in a volcano. And here we are importing $3 billion and turning it into, burning it to, and why isn't that a big deal to the people of Hawaii? They built the power plant on the leeward side of the island so that it all blows out to sea so that we don't get pollution. It's like out of sight, out of mind, what do you call it? We did all kinds of things. We tried to get the politicians to move, and of course they don't move unless the people move. So then we figured out we got to make the people move. How do we get the people to move? Again, we did all kinds of things. I think one of the biggest things we did is we had elementary school children go door to door and exchange 300,000 light bulbs. And in so doing, they had a conversation with the adult in the room about energy efficiency and about climate change. Ultimately, it was children that got us to stop smoking. It wasn't the public health, announcements on the box, on the package, whatever. So the children convinced the adults, so in so many words, the people got on our side, then finally the politicians followed. And we were the first state in the country to have a mandate of 100% renewable energy by, our date was 2045. It was a negotiation. They wanted 2050, we wanted 2040, and we settled for 2045. The 2045 turns out to be a great date.
And the specific use case when it deals with the ocean, specifically around plastics. Now, next slide, please. So regarding plastics, obviously, like we talk about, as Jeremy was saying, and like talking about Ralph Chalmey, who actually placed a valuation around ocean assets and natural assets working with the World Bank. I asked Ralph when I was speaking to him, it's like, I understand the valuation model behind, essentially a carbon sequestration assets, natural-based assets. But what is the environmental cost of plastics? So, looking at the cost side, we actually can come up with the environmental cost of plastics. In terms of the wealth creation, the wealth valuation of ocean and marine life and resources, the studies actually right now, latest studies are around $47 trillion is the actual valuation of all the marine assets, and that's just on a monetary basis in terms of what value it is, what kind of value it provides for us in terms of economic value. That's not even talking about the evaluation of carbon sequestration value. So at present, we have 14 million tons approximately, actually at least 14 million tons of plastics really just being dumped into the oceans every single year. The economic cost of all of this ocean plastics right now is in excess of $2.7 trillion. That 2.5 is it's actually closer to $2.7 trillion. And it's increasing every single year because more and more plastics are being introduced into the marine environment every single year.
Threaten the delicate balance of marine life. No single entity or organization can solve these problems alone. We need to forge partnerships that bring together governments, businesses, NGOs, scientists, and local communities. Governments have a vital role to play in creating policies and regulations that protect our oceans. By establishing marine protected areas, enforcing sustainable fishing practices, and implementing effective waste management systems, governments can provide the necessary framework for ocean conservation. However, government actions alone are insufficient. It is a collaboration efforts with other stakeholders that truly make a difference. Businesses, both large and small, have tremendous influence and resources that can be harnessed to protect and restore our oceans. Through sustainable practices, responsible sourcing, and innovation, businesses can reduce their ecological footprint and contribute to the preservation of marine ecosystems. Furthermore, partnerships between the industries and environmental organizations can drive research and development of new technologies that promote ocean conversations. NGOs and scientific institutions play a pivotal role in monitoring the health of our oceans and raising awarenesses about the challenges they face. By conducting research, advocating for policy change, and engaging in community outreach, these organizations empower individuals and communities to take action. Collaboration between NGOs, scientists, and governments can ensure implementation of evidence-based strategies for ocean revitalization. Lastly, local communities and individuals must be actively involved in ocean conservation efforts. Their intimate knowledge of coastal ecosystems coupled with their commitment to sustainable practices can have a significant impact. By fostering partnerships with communities, empowering local fishermen, and promoting environmental education, we can build grassroots movement that safeguard our oceans. Partnerships are a cornerstone of revitalization. We must foster collaborations between all stakeholders to tackle the complex challenges threatening our marine ecosystems. By combining our expertise, resources, and determination, we can create a sustainable future where our oceans thrive. Let us seize the opportunity and work together to ensure that future generations inherit a healthy and vibrant ocean environment. Now, our nonprofit SDG Relief Fund uses data from the UN and other sources to develop and support networks among stakeholders, creating partnerships on a global and local scale. We integrate small businesses, mainly family offices and foundations, with support from the public sector. By investing in this effort now, we are securing the networks at the heart of our plan of action.
And so it has a rigid wing sail design, which is extremely efficient. It acts like an aircraft wing, but up on one end, and that creates a huge amount of lift. But importantly, I also covered the whole superstructure and solar sails with this photovoltaic surfacing, so it collects free and clean renewable energy from the sun, and you can store that in the batteries and essentially make the yacht zero emission mode. So by harnessing the power of nature, you can use wind and solar and use this to propel the yacht indefinitely, whilst also supporting the 14th goal of the Sustainable Development Goals. So it's a holistic design approach. I wanted to use everything where possible to minimize any detrimental environmental impact, and that involved using wood from sustainably managed sources and forests, and also looked at the whole life cycle of a yacht and the design of one to ensure we have cradle to cradle as opposed to a cradle to grave approach. Perhaps in 2008 I was 15 years ahead of the curve, but it was great to see now that sustainability is a subject within the yachting sector. That includes various organizations, including the Water Revolution Foundation. They're helping to educate the industry broadly across the industry around the world. And also Moravia Yachting and the wider Hill Robinson Group, who are doing so much to support ocean conservation, and they're also the first company in the yachting sector to offset their global operations. And I love to curate tailor-made charter vacations for my clients and advise them how to make their yacht ownership as sustainable as possible to minimize any impact. And indeed, they can use their yachts at the ends of the earth to explore and find new species and support ocean conservation. Thank you for the opportunity.
Conservation that is involved in the initiative to deliver a global cruise vacation experience to the guests, who, many of whom, by the way, are really participating in recycling and being cognizant of how to take care of the world's oceans. So it is an industry that has really changed through the years, and particularly the last 20 to 30 years, as we all may or may not be aware. There's something called IMO 2030, IMO 2020, and all of that is surrounding the way to run an industry that makes its living off of the sea, basically, via technology, infrastructure, and operations that are all eco-friendly and trying to adhere as best as possible to the UN SDG. I can tell you that they are now utilizing LNG as a transitional fuel, while cruise lines support sustainable marine fuel and propulsion technology in the world, hopefully in the most sustainable manner, to be as eco-friendly as possible, not only to our beautiful oceans. As Margot said, 70% of the world, the oceans are water. Our planet Earth is water. So they are doing a great job, and they will continue to do so. And I will tell you, just as a side note, how the world evolves and changes. I own a home in Tuscany, and I can tell you, in those hills and mountains of Tuscany, years and years ago, all of Tuscany was under the water. You can actually hike through some of those mountains and see fossils. So it's an evolutionary process, and all of us can do our part, be it as individuals or industries, to really protect our beautiful oceans. And on that note, I will pass it back to Dan and Margot and say a big thank you again for having me, and a thank you to everybody here and all of the efforts that are going on worldwide to make our oceans a better place. Thank you.
As Margot and I talked, I said, you know, you can talk about cities all over the world that are in jeopardy regarding sea level rise, but I thought it might be useful, and if you know this already, please forgive me, but I thought it might be useful to talk about a couple of U.S. cities that are in such vulnerable states. First, New York, and sort of some of the actions they are taking or planning to take. I feel like that's a really important way to show other cities around the world what's happening. So New York in 2022 created a plan for action against sea level rise, and it's basically three things, some of which I think are quite controversial. I wish I was around to find out more from you experts in the room about the opportunity here, but first is to build seawalls, some at 12 feet, some at 20 feet high. The controversy is, what will it do to coastal areas around the city of New York? The second thing is to increase the size of levees and berms around the city of New York. And the third is to deploy movable gates that open and close with storms and any kind of wind and storm disaster. I think the questions are, you know, will it spoil the waterfront? What about the parks and the recreation areas right on the coast of New York City? Does it protect all parts of the city? I think there's controversy about just supporting the financial district of New York rather than looking at the entire area of Manhattan, perhaps. But the question, I think, for all of us to understand, and some of you on this call appear to be experts, so we can talk later, but I think, you know, the question is, what are the costs of these plans, and what are the realistic future scenarios that cities should consider? The second example is Miami, Florida.
Drink out of. It's 100% made out of sustainable recycled aluminum, which helps minimize plastic totally. The freshness, it's better, it's more hygienic than typical plastic. The lid is tight, and keeps carbonation in, if we have a carbonated drink, or it keeps food fresh also. So when you open up a big can of vegetables or something and
that's trash is from us, humanity in whole. And you can go to the next slide. I know we've been kind of zooming around. Nope, one up. Oh boy. All right, so essentially we were invited to run this expedition, and nothing from the beginning started right. As all expeditions, all explorers know, right? You have a plan, you kind of throw it out, right? Lower right image was the boat we were supposed to use. I was mic'd up as the beach cleanup leader because we had staff media group from New Zealand ready to get interviews on the beach. They wanted to capture what the beach looked like with drones. Jay, our local boat driver, just dropped them off, was coming back out through the huge surf. Irony of all ironies, a piece of plastic rope in the reef knocks the engine out, given the surf, boat goes sideways, boom, game over. Our Royal Marines were thankfully on the beach, were able to help recover the boat, but we overnight had unexpected castaways, right? The entire media team spent the night on the beach, wearing shorts and a t-shirt in an environment that gets quite cold. Thankfully, working with the overall expedition team, me and my team recreated a trail system, that's the other images you see here, which had us hiking around headlands, scaling cliffs, to end up cleaning up the 1.5-mile beach down to bottle cap size. Through that, we developed new science, new understanding of the marine environment. It's one of the world's largest marine protected areas. Also got recognition from the Explorers Club, among a variety of other things. But really, what was most impactful in my mind was the fact that we told the story of human empathy, told the story of what is happening with plastics, and we are fortunate to have this story told in over 100 countries, and I've lost track of how many media.
That inspired the Climate Case Initiative to take the lead to advance intergenerational equity and climate justice through the International Court of Justice. So, building upon the outcomes of the upcoming SDG Summit this September, the Summit of the Future in September of 2024 offers a once-in-a-generation opportunity to renew and reform the UN and international cooperation more broadly. In civil society and the private sector, and all of us in the room today have a crucial role to play. Hence the genesis of the Global Futures Forum that brought together more than 2,000 online CSF representatives and some 200 in-person participants in New York over the course of 3 days in March to finalize and begin to promote, including among UN missions and senior secretariat officials, an interim People's Pact for the Future as an evolving civil society declaration of some 36 reform proposals. And to continue the global conversation through next year, we are now in consultation with the UN Department of Global Communications about organizing another UN civil society conference next April or May, perhaps in Nairobi, aligned with the Summit of the Future, thereby ensuring even greater grassroots and global